Alright, Niv-Mizzet list that we're taking into rank. So it's built around obviously Niv-Mizzet, we all know what he does. We're running 4 Leyline Binding, 4 Fable in the main deck. So from that we're splattered with removal for Vanishing, Tyrant, Scorn, Assassin's Trophy. Colligan's Command, board wipes with Deafening Clarion and Supreme Verdict. Our sticking threats apart from Niv are Kaito the Dancing Shadow to synergize with Wandering Mind and other bounce spells. Edgar the Charmed Groom is a stick around hard to kill threat. Invasion of Urgon for some cycling slash bounceable ability with Yorion's Blink synergies. Aside from that sideboard we have Control Hate, Nixus Hate, Control Hate, Weenie Hate, Control Hate, Weenie Hate, and late game mid-range or grindy hate. Aside from that, notable things, Cosmic Rebirth to rebuy our free drops back to the field if we have to for Forties protection, and that's 1 minute, let's go. Alright, we got our first match here versus Han Soft. We have a deck with a hand with nothing but Fable, so naturally we're going to keep it just for the meme of Fable can win. Blue-black start off, so looking like a control-based list, makes me consider that even more. So we have Esper, so potentially a control list, so we'll hold up for an end of turn growth spiral. They use Tainted Indulgence, so instantly I know this is Esper Rat Pilot Reanimator. Basically it's the slightly less efficient version of the Esper Abzan Greasefang deck. They go for a Fortsies, take our Fable when we were 1 away from it. Tragic. We'll use Urgamon here, loot away one of our excess lands. We do find a removal spell here. I choose to hold Upkeep, so I'm holding Upkeep because if our opponent drops a Greasefang with that stop there, I can kill it before they reanimate anything. I'm not too worried about taking 2 damage here from a Ledger Shredder, or 3 damage if they manage to trigger the Connive. They have a Sovereign flagship in the graveyard, so I want to make sure I can deal with that. But they don't seem to have it, so I'm just going to kill this Ledger Shredder now before it gets out of hand. They throw away a Fatal Push. We find a Supreme Verdict, which is an interesting choice. We're just going to put Yorion into hand here, for no other reason other than to be a blocker. Our opponent, Faithful Mendings from the graveyard. Dumps 2 lands. Interesting play here, uses Portable Hull to trigger Connive, I guess is the main reason, to take out our Invasion of Urgamon. I suppose they want us to have no value, maybe to make us not play Yorion. But honestly at this point, since we have nothing else to do, I was going to play him regardless. Yes, we hit another land, so we'll just run out Yorion. Tap Blood Crypt. Our opponent drops a Liliana the Veil, so they had the answer all along. They're going to force us to sacrifice Yorion, hit us for 1. We find an Assassin's Trophy, so we'll play a land here. Again, it's more threat assessment. I want to hold this if I can for a Greasefang potentially, but we're just going to see what they do with their action. I choose to get rid of our land here. Our opponent attacks us for 1, then holds back. Then attacks again. In the step we will find Cosmic Rebirth here. So we can buy back our Fable here, which could be huge. Our opponent uses Takanuma to mill some cards. I look at the graveyard, they have nothing but Clarion Ledger Shredders. They do hit 2 Pahilions though, so now it's danger time. Tainted Indulgence, they have a full slew of 5 cards, so this is a straight up draw 2. Lily upticks. I'm going to get rid of the Supreme Verdict here, which might be a controversial choice, but ultimately I want us to try and deal with it. So, in response, I'm going to Assassin's Trophy, kill Liliana here, and then Cosmic Rebirth in response, and we'll bring Fable back to hand here. I would potentially have liked to bring Yorion as a better blocker, but this Fortsies has forced my hand. So, our opponent loots away their Ledger Shredder and does nothing. They have an unknown card in hand, loot another card, find another Fortsies. They hit us for free. We find the Leyline Binding. So we'll attack here with Goblin Shaman. They have a Greasefang, so we'll put the stop on the main phase. And then before combat, we'll throw out a Leyline Binding, get rid of Greasefang, so we don't have to deal with a Parhelion kill out of nowhere. Well, we keep finding our land, so we'll just keep going in here. Mana's not a concern right now, so we'll hold the land as discard fodder. Our opponent seems to be having a similar situation to us. We're not going to attack here because our opponent held back. In the end step though, we can copy the reflections and on our turn copy it again to swing in for at least 2 to just incrementally make damage and make mana here. So we'll do that, swing in with our 2 disposable tokens. This guarantees us 2 damage every other turn and puts the race further in our favour. We just gotta hope as well we can just find something. We have mana sorted forever now. Oh, we find a Tyrant Scorn, which is perfect for us. So ultimately, it's gonna come down to who finds a better solution first. They find their next Ledger Shredder, which is interesting. They have 1 unknown, so they're gonna get in here for 3 damage, putting us down to 10. However, now, in the end step, I'm choosing whether or not Tyrant Scorn, but our mana situation is so good. What we're actually going to do here is Tyrant Scorn again, swing in with these, still get guaranteed damage here. I'm still just scared that the last thing could be a Greasefang. They find a Rafine, so it was a very good idea that we kept this. Beginning of combat, we will kill the Rafine here, pay the ward. They attack, and we find Niv-Mizzet, which is our saving grace here, so we'll use Niv's reload. We don't find a lot, but it's enough for a significant roadblock, and our opponent concedes. Alright, Greasefang, so building mistake in this deck, we do not have Graveyard Hate, so Fatal pushes in, Fort Seizes in, Kaito out, he's a bit slow, Edgar is a bit slow as well, and we'll put in these other cards. Now ultimately, since we have no efficient Graveyard Hate, what we're trying to do is just answer their reanimation effects in the lieu of the Right, so this was another mulligan. We find decent starting 6 here. Not the greatest starting 6, but it'll do. So we can turn 1 Fortsies. I'm going to take the Liliana here because I can pretty much kill everything easier, and Liliana early tick up into Fret could be dangerous. But it also tricks our opponent thinking we have an answer for the Think Dirt Ice because they won't run it out now because they're worried. We find a Vanishing Verse, which is perfect for us, so end step we're going to Growth Spiral, see if we can bait out the negate. They don't do it, so we'll pass. Find another Tyrant Scorn, so now we have an answer for the negate technically because we have double removal on that. So now it's on whether or not our opponents switch to a full control deck or a full Greasefang list here. So end step. Let's use Vanishing Verse to get that negate out of their hand, and then we'll Tyrant Scorn just to kill the thing in the ice now while their shields are down. We top deck a Fable, so we'll get that out immediately. Start gaining some value from that. Our opponent drops their Ledger Shredder and uses Faithful Mending to connive, draw 2, discard 2. We find 2 lands, so bye bye with Fable. We find a Fortseize, so Fortseize here, get rid of the last card which was Sheldred Edict, and we'll put Yorion into hand. We'll attack in because they can't connive from here, so we might as well get a free treasure. Our health is significantly lower, but we just got to play it safe here. At this point I'm pretty sure our opponent has pivoted into more blue-black control, since I haven't seen a vehicle yet. They connive to make a 2-4 here. They don't attack, which I think is a mistake because they could technically win this race. So I'm just going to run out Yorion here and blink the reflections. I'm doing that just to reset to get an extra draw step off it. Opponent finds their next land. Plays a Faithful Mending. discards a Rafine, and then use Faithful Mending again and get a Connive. Interesting. Discarding 2 more cards. Very interesting what that last card they kept is. So I'm going to get rid of both of these to draw 2 cards. We find a Fatal Push for that. And then we can play our Wandering Mind here. Find us a Leyline Binding, which is a good answer to any threat they might have. Attack in with Double Goblin for 8. Tainted Indulgence goes off. Discard land, they find a Rafine. Fortunately though, we have more than enough mana to pay for Ward here. I'm going to cycle Jetmir's Garden, see if we can find anything else. I'm going to choose to use the Leyline Binding right now. And swing in with our team for 10. So we are still dead if they can somehow put together the rat combo here, if it's still in their deck. I might have missed it in the replay here. But nope, they concede, so that's a pretty solid victory for us. Next we move on to our next match. This is a slowish, okay hand, but I'm sure we won't be punished for not keeping a hand without blue in, right? We'll start with a tapped Sacred Foundry. Opponent goes into Recruitment Officers. This is mono white soldiers or mono white weenie, so we will pass back. Opponent goes to go into combat, so we'll Vanishing Verse here. Basically, you've just got to stop them amassing a huge board if you can. They play Mina Harker. Put this into play tapped. Well, this is Thalia basically with the cool Dracula art. They play Adeline. So this puts us in a slightly awkward position here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Leyline Binding here to get rid of the Adeline. I'm trying to force them into a situation where they think that I don't have a sweeper. So they'll just deploy threats. They put 1 Luminarch Assessment down. They could have Brave the Elements here, but I choose to ignore it and go for the Deafening Clarion. Fortunately, they didn't have it. We have 3 Growth Spirals now. They drop Recruitment Officer. We pass, we'll use Growth Spiral immediately. We find a K command, which is a good answer to what we got on the table. They swing in for the Recruitment Officer. I choose to take 2 here. I'm just going to see if I can bait out any more stuff from them. Right, I find the Wandering Mind here. What I'm going to do now though is Clarion immediately, because I want to do this before I have to deploy my Wandering Mind. And I can Growth Spiral on the end step here. They get their 5th mana. Play a Brutal Kafar, which is a good thing I didn't play my Wandering Mind. We find a Fabled Passage. We'll crack that. Pick up another blue because I'm traumatized now. So we'll use our Wandering Mind here. Find a Kaito. Or the other Kaito. Choices magic gives you are sometimes hilarious. Opponent plays a Brutal Kafar to steal our Wandering Mind. Goes to combat. We will use Colligan's Command here. Our opponent did have a Brave the Elements to keep their Brutal Kafar alive, but they now discarded their other card. So this is perfect for us. So, first things first, Tyrant, Scorn, destroy the Brutal Kafar. Get back our Wandering Mind and blocker. We'll take a Leyline Binding to deal with anything they might have. I put Yorion into hand here. The auto tapper alerts me that it's about to do something stupid, so I have to manually tap here. So I can hold up the Leyline Binding. The activated Unimolt here. Before the start of combat, thanks to the stop I put there, I'm going to get rid of the Luminarch Aspirant. So if they want to swing in here, they will have to trade one of their creatures. They go for the swing in, so I will take out a Mutavault now, because it's more troublesome to kill. I'll play Kaito, plus Kaito, so the Brutal Kafar can't attack next turn, and then I'll pass. Our opponent draws, and ultimately concedes. Alright, so we have to bring in everything for the aggro matchup. And we take out, sadly, Kaito was great in that end matchup, but normally he's not the greatest draw. Invasion, I'm umming and ahhing about. I could ultimately take out the Cosmic Reverse because it's a little too cute and slow, because They probably won't have like Thoughtseize hand disruption, but they could have ways to kill stuff. But if we're bringing it back with that, it'll probably be too late for us anyway. Right, so we're in danger here. Our opponent goes first. We have a good slew hand here, so we'll keep it. Play the Jetmirs. Opponent drops a Thalia on 2, which makes our board significantly harder to deal with. Opponent is seeing what we got here. Probably trying to assess what's in our hand. Again, like to remind you, this is ×2 play. They play a Dauntless and give the indestructibility to the recruitment bodyguard, which is weird. So what I'm going to do here is pass. Opponent plays a Thalia's Lieutenant, so in response I'm going to Leyline Binding here. Get rid of the Thalia. The Fatal Push here is great, so what I can do now is Clarion, put on full control, hold up a black. When they activate the Dauntless, we can use it to kill the Recruiter of the Guard here. So we're looking pretty solid right now. Our opponent has another Recruitment Officer into another Thalia. And ultimately this is pretty dumb for us here. So we will force him to discard here and kill the Thalia. They had now Lean in hand, which is unfortunate for us. 6 life means we're pretty much okay for most things here, but they have another Radine in hand. Supreme Verdict is bad because we don't have the means to use it properly, so we'll use the Invasion here to loot away a Fable to see if we can draw anything that might help us. I consider my options here and ultimately decide that I'm going to use Tyrant Scorn. So I'm going to kill the Adeline here because I can next turn go for Niv and be safe, but they have a Thalia's Lieutenant, which is like a perfect draw for them. And ultimately we have to use Wandering Mind to try to find something. But we are 1 mana down and ultimately we lose that. Run it back though, we had a slightly awkward hand and our opponent drew very well. Plus turn 2 Thalia on the play is way better. When we're on the draw, sorry, is very awkward to deal with here. Right, our opponent switches. Right, this hand is perfect. So we'll drop a Triome. They have the Recruitment Officer. We'll pass again. They go to combat, so I'm going to Vanishing Verse, follow my own advice from game 1. They play another Recruitment Officer into a Dauntless Bodyguard. I'm going to play the Wandering Mind here. I can find a Fatal Push. We wait, pass the turn. They play a Waiting Announcement. They swing into attack, so I'll offer the trade here. I consider it, but ultimately I decide, you know what, if I get rid of their indestructibility now for free, that's perfect. Alright, pretty good. Issue is, mana base is a bit awkward, so what we're going to do here is wait, see what our opponent does. They try to go to combat, so immediately we'll Fatal Push the Recruitment Officer. They activate, so in response to them activating, I'm going to flash in Leyline Binding, take out the Waiting Announcement, so it doesn't do any value for them. They find a Thalia's Lieutenant, but we mess up with our Nivlands here, because it's been a while, so we just pass. We ultimately wanted to play a few more things here. They play Luminarch Aspirant, Recruitment Officer, put a 1/1 on top of their token, swing in for 2. In response, I'm going to cycle Jetmir, see if I can find a better answer. We do find the land here, so we'll drop that. Throw out Niv-Mizzet. Niv-Mizzet finds us a 3-coin removal spell. So we have a 6/6 hard to deal with blocker here, and we have protection if they have one of their Brave the Elements here. So this play here will dictate hardly what they must have in hand. Hopeful Initiate goes down. At the beginning of upkeep they put a 1/1 counter on the Hopeful Initiate. We pass to our turn, so we'll use the Clarion we know about immediately, because even if they have protection, we can activate the second mode and give lifelink to Niv. Our opponent in response uses Hopeful Initiate to kill the Deafening Clarion, to kill the Leyline Binding. So we'll gain 6 here and go up to 21. They play the Extraction Specialist. In response, we're just going to Growth Spiral, get another land on the field. And they Luminarch Aspirant, and they drop a Thalia's Lieutenant. Now, this is where they get greedy, however. They spread out their damage here, and I feel so bad, because if they put it on the Extraction, they could have stayed in this. So, yep, we just Clarion again, and that's it. Opponent's out of the game. So while we had two very good looking games, here is a game where everything in the world goes wrong. You'll notice we have to mulligan down to 5 to find a land. Then I, like a mistake, get rid of our red sources, thinking I should draw a red source and I'd be fine, and we are paired up against control. So first match we get nothing, second match they just have every counter in the spell, and this is usually how the control matchup goes for against the 5-color mid-range deck. So thank you for watching. If you want to watch the end of this match, it's literally 2 more minutes. Thanks, hope you enjoyed it.